A photo of a boy's solemn face is distorted. A photo of a young man and his father is divided into vertical strips.
Disability in North India was not a perspective of empowerment. That may have contributed to me wanting to mask the fact that I actually had an eye condition, because it made me feel lesser of a person.
Gaps warp a young man's photo.
It's pity versus compassion. There's two very different things. Telling people that I needed some extra support in producing my best quality work. Because I walked into such a high performance environment, I did not want people to feel that I could not operate at the same level that was expected in that environment. There was no precedent for someone being really successful with a vision impairment in computer science. I just had to take a chance.
Title: Perspective Shift. A line expands under the name Kenny Singh. Wearing a grey suit, Kenny strides through a stylish foyer. Earphones hang around his neck. Later, Stephen Worrell, Microsoft Australia's managing director, is interviewed.
Role models and precedences of someone being successful in a certain craft or trade is essential to someone gaining the confidence to bet their career on a specific direction.
I think it's that combination of humility, growth mindset, and then this insatiable appetite to stay current and to be the very best that he can be. And in that context, he's been a role model for many of us for many years.
I can channel my passion and my innovation and my experiences in overcoming obstacles and adversities in a way that now I just would not give up. Spontaneously, my mind is programmed to look at every specific challenge as a problem that needs to be solved.
Kenny has definitely worked very hard, and there's nothing that he feels cannot be done.
Yeah, he's the soul of the family. He's very helpful to everyone.
The work that he leads contributes very directly to the business outcomes, not just projects, but the outcomes for large partners. And so this is an important area of our business, and Kenny is a very senior leader inside that part of the business.
An archway frames the elegant Taj Mahal.
I was born in India in 1979, in North India, in fact. I had the absolute pleasure to live in a region which was in the countryside of North India, and especially around the April time frame, that very strong green fragrance of crops being harvested. Yeah. So that's a very distinct memory. I'd actually say it was a very normal but privileged life in India.
Photos show the family through the years.
We actually did have a lot of support, and we had house help basically 24 hours a day. That person helped in cooking, that person helped in cleaning, and we did have a driver for a car as well, yes.
We were a happy family. We are a family of doctors, and yes, so quite well off.
Harjinder, Kenny's father.
India is a very, very communal society. We basically knew most of the neighbors in our street, and we could essentially walk into any neighbor's house and have a meal as kids. There was a whole thing about it being a very small, close-knit community. So there's a very strong communal element there.
This is Kenny, 4-year-old, with our friends. This is Kenny.
Kenny's parents.
Kenny was actually a very good child, yeah, right from the beginning. He's a big problem solver. He tries to solve everyone's problem, even if it's beyond his reach.
Young Kenny wears a checked suit.
So I just saw the impact that doctors could potentially have on the world around them, and I was absolutely fascinated by it. And that's exactly why I wanted to be a doctor.
Photos show little Kenny receiving awards.
Going to school was something I really, really used to look forward to. I was quite academically inclined from a very early age. I think that was also because there was a lot of focus on education and academia in my family circle. If you look at STEM, so science, technology, engineering, mathematics, that was my sweet spot. So I'd actually say that the STEM subjects really motivated me as well.
Kenny was in one of the best schools, and he did very well. So he always stood first in the class. That was actually a tradition in my family. Everyone stood first in the class.
Wearing a red coat and white turban, teenage Kenny receives an award.
So Dad was actively looking for a couple of years for a place overseas to migrate to. They'd be moving to a country where it would probably be a lot better for their children.
We were confident that if we go, we will be able to provide a better education for our children. So we abroad, then yeah, they can achieve their potential. That was the main aim, yeah.
And after doing all the research and having lots of conversations with people, friends and family who'd settled overseas in Canada and Australia and New Zealand, they zoomed in on New Zealand specifically.
Sheep feed near the base of towering mountains.
My initial impressions of New Zealand was that it was probably one of the most beautiful places I've seen in my life. I had never seen a beach before moving to New Zealand because North India is a landlocked state. The people in New Zealand, they're extremely friendly, extremely forthcoming, extremely welcoming. Nevertheless, because of the entire lives that my family had spent in India, it was really, really difficult for them to get adjusted. I think the whole family felt quite isolated, quite uprooted, and careers disrupted. So there was a very strong sense of being out of place in New Zealand.
Gurbinder, Kenny's mother.
New Zealand was very hard for me. There was no social gathering, no friends. There was no home help.
But the main problem was job.
Job.
There
the
was no
main
job.
problem.
It was challenging, very challenging, yeah.
The family pose on a beach.
It was in my latter parts of school in New Zealand that my eye condition got diagnosed. The symptoms were quite obvious. I began to bump into things and so on and so forth. So we went and saw an eye specialist.
Teen Kenny has curly hair.
I got diagnosed with an eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa.
He stands before a backdrop of huge X-rays.
I always saw myself as someone who wanted to be or who was going to be a doctor in life, and that's how I sort of defined myself. So I actually had to completely recalibrate and recreate who I really was in my own head. I was really struggling mentally because there was just a very significant alteration of the course of my life. So it was a very difficult time because there were financial constraints, there were, mental health issues in my own head about not being comfortable with my new reality and denying the new reality. So there was a complete compounding of a lot of things.
Kenny smiles with his brother.
There were times where I actually felt, right, I just need to end this pain. I actually had to go see a counselor regularly because I just wasn't doing very well. The friends and family circle was very supportive. So I think that actually sort of helped me push on and recalibrate things.
Gurbinder, Kenny's mother.
I used to read for him for hours together, especially when there was exam. So up to 2 o'clock at night, I would read for him because he wanted to learn thoroughly everything.
I've always been a very curious soul right from childhood. And when I got diagnosed with this eye condition, I had a little door shut because my access to information significantly reduced. I got a laptop from the New Zealand education system. I got taught how to use screen readers and magnifiers. So instead of your eyes reading what's on your computer screen, this very sophisticated program reads everything out to you. I can even script my screen reader to do some very, very unique and powerful things and present information to me in the way that I can consume it the best. I could read faster than what I was actually able to do when I was fully sighted.
That really changed his life. And then he started doing his work independently. He could read, listen, and type also his assignments. Then there was no problem for him.
It really opened up a world of social connection, of new information, learning, and the internet World Wide Web itself. It actually gave me the information that I needed to recalibrate the identity in my head.
Wearing one earphone, Kenny uses his laptop and phone. He strolls from the table.
I was told that there was precedence of people with some kind of an eye condition pursuing a degree in law, right? And commerce, I thought, right, that's from a career perspective, commerce and law together might actually be a strong value proposition in the corporate sector. I mean, I actually had no intention of pursuing these specific careers, but I got into discussing these possibilities because medicine was not going to be a possibility any longer.
Somebody's got to serve, otherwise no one will eat, right? You just keep sitting there.
It's a very important task.
When it is done, they'll come.
I do the same thing as well. Once she's cleaned up the whole kitchen, I'll be like, we need some help.
That's a bit like Indian police.
All the
Right at the end.
Do you need any help?
So Tina's family has a very similar story to ours. Her family migrated to New Zealand as well. I met her in a social setting, I think in sort of 1998, 1999.
I met him a couple of days after I reached New Zealand. I was really disorientated from just such a big move and change in life. And I found that friend in Kenny over that time whom I could really talk to and who would understand what I was going through.
We came from a similar part of the world, so there were a lot of common things behind the scenes as well. And I guess all of that together helped us, help each other and create a very strong bond together.
We're actually exact opposites of each other. Kenny, super chatty, loves having friends around and he's kind of the life of the party. And I'm actually the exact opposite. I'm super introverted. So we were really talking cheese as people and as personalities.
I actually asked her over a phone call, do we see ourselves more than friends?
I was like, yeah, let's do this. It's pretty cool.
So we started dating in 1999. We've been together for 21 years now.
Tina and Kenny pose with several friends.
At uni, Kenny was surrounded by lots of mates. It was very good seeing him with his friends, but sometimes it felt like he was trying to be someone maybe he was not, almost as if he was trying to make up for something.
That was the time when I was in denial. And at any cost, I wanted people to feel that I did not have an eye condition at all. And that in itself became quite a limiting factor. From the part of the world where I came from, where I was born, if you had a disability, you were considered lesser of a person, someone that needed to be looked after rather than someone who was an equal contributor to the world around them. In a certain way, that may have contributed to me wanting to mask the fact that I actually had an eye condition because it made me feel lesser of a person. I was masking my eye condition so I could fit in, so I could feel that I belonged to my university crowd and that I wasn't an outcast.
His image is distorted.
In the first 6 months of my commerce degree, I realized that is not something I wanted to do. I did not enjoy it one bit. With law, it took me a little longer to figure out that law was not something that I wanted to pursue as a career in my life. My calling really lied with computer science, and that's what I ended up pursuing throughout the course of my career.
Kenny types wearing an earphone.
So there was a very strong sense of empowerment that I felt when I embarked on the computer science degree. I felt that if I really could make computers work for myself, then I could be a lot more productive and a lot more effective in life. I used to write little code segments in a language called Java at the time for family friends and their kids, programs that would randomly throw mathematical questions at young kids and get them to respond to it and then reward them for it. I actually found very strong passion in computer science. I just felt that the more I learned computers, the more I actually had a safe space where I could express my creativity and do things without constraints. So it was very empowering.
Kenny's screen is projected as a hologram.
So I was at that time in my life where I really wanted to get a job because I really wanted to get together with Tina and get married to her.
We had been going out for good 4 or 5 years. At that point, your parents do say, what are your plans?
We came from 2 immigrant Indian families. Living together without getting married was not an option. 1 year before I was meant to graduate, I moved to Australia and I made the decision to pursue a career rather than invest another year studying. There were just so many more career opportunities and resources available in Australia for me to be successful at. And that's how I moved to Australia first in about 2004.
And we did the long distance thing for almost 2 years, me being in New Zealand and Kenny being here.
And so we used to talk to each other for at least an hour every night.
The novelty wears off after a couple of months, and then you're just like, can we just stop this and just get on with normal relationship, really?
Then I moved to Australia. I applied for a lot of software development jobs because I actually felt that I had strong skills in that vocation. And Vision Australia was newly founded at the time. They were in the process of creating their first unified Vision Australia branded website. And they were looking for a web developer. I understood web development really well from the perspective of making that web development as inclusive as possible. So when I got a call from the hiring manager at the time informing me that I had been chosen for the role, that was a permanent role we were waiting for. So I immediately called Tina, and Tina was delighted. We fixed the date for the wedding.
We got married in 2006. It was a relatively small-scale wedding by Indian standards, I might say. That's how we wanted it. We just wanted intimate friends and family with us.
In photos of wedding ceremonies, the bridal couple wear elaborate outfits in red, white and gold. Long garlands hang around their necks. Guests wear traditional clothes.
And when Kenny and I moved to Melbourne, we absolutely loved it. And that's where we made our life.
In their yard, Kenny throws a ball for one of their small dogs.
So Vision Australia had a very inclusive culture. All the equipment being labeled with tags that were accessible to people with different cognitive needs. Assistive technology, for example, screen readers and magnifiers, making everyone feel that they could do their best work with the support systems that they actually needed. There wasn't any hiding of my eye condition. Vision Australia. I actually felt quite empowered. I was given a lot of opportunities to learn and grow. After becoming a web developer, I became a team lead, and then an architecture and development manager after that. We had a Microsoft partner consultant come in one day to implement business intelligence for us. He and I got talking, and he saw the way I operated Microsoft tech. I got a reach out from one of the engineering leads in the SQL Server team, and they basically said to me that would I be open to the idea of coming and spending 4 weeks with their team and giving them a whole raft of feedback on how the software could be designed more inclusively. Essentially, how do you write code in a way that makes your software more inclusive? So the first time I went to the Microsoft Redmond campus in Seattle, it was just absolutely incredible, and I just saw the work the people did there and the impact that they were having in the world. And I think the mind was made up then that I really, really, really wanted to work for the organization. There was a job advertised of a SharePoint consultant in Microsoft Consulting Services. There were a lot of interviews involved in that process.
We're a very thoughtful employer in terms of the talent that we bring into the company, largely so that we can serve our customers and partners in the most effective way. And we want to make sure, as a result, we have the very best talent that we can find. We want the process to be two-way so that each person who interviews with us gets to know us along the way, and so that they can make the assessment that they want to choose to join us as much as we might choose them.
There was a lot of trepidation and a lot of unsurety of whether I had what it took to work for an organization like Microsoft. I went for the job, I went through the entire interview process, and I was not successful. So I was very deeply disappointed that I did not get a role at Microsoft, but I was very determined and I hadn't given up.
Kenny has close-cropped hair.
Another role for a Microsoft SharePoint consultant came up in Melbourne, and I applied for that role, and after around 7 interviews, I was successful for that role, and I was just completely over the moon with that. I mean, that was my absolute dream come true.
He had a big celebration when he got into Microsoft. It was, many parties, and we had a good time.
Kenny laughs with Tina and his parents.
In Microsoft Consulting Services, my role was very, very focused on helping Microsoft customers, for example, the big banks, the largest telecommunications providers, mining companies, on deploying Microsoft cloud products and services. I came from an environment which was very highly adapted from an inclusion perspective into an environment which just did not have a lot of precedence of someone with different cognitive needs working in it. I just did not feel very comfortable telling people that I needed some extra support in producing my best quality work.
Kenny sits at a computer and puts in an earphone.
And I ended up spending a lot of time myself magnifying the documents to pick out visual inconsistencies in the document. And where it was appropriate to get Tina's eyes on a specific document, I got her to look at it and provide me feedback.
When Kenny started at Microsoft, he asked me to help him out. Little things that we never thought about earlier, things like using PowerPoint, for example, it wasn't accessible. Things like filling out his timesheets at work, that platform again was not accessible at the time.
She actually has a very busy job and a very busy schedule as well. Look, I just felt very stressed, and that led to me falling to food for soothing. I did not have any motivation for exercising. It actually led me to gaining a lot of weight and my vital statistics not doing very well at all.
We got family history of diabetes from both the sides, overweight and central obesity and blood pressure. And so that puts him at a risk of diabetes.
It took a lot of emotional support from friends and family for me to get through that period. By that time, I had spent about 7 years at Microsoft Australia. I had a reputation of high performance and a reputation of very high standards in the organization. One of our largest events, customer and partner events in Microsoft Australia, is called Microsoft Summit. Steve and his team reached out to me, and they gave me the opportunity to tell my story and to demonstrate the Seeing AI app at the Microsoft Summit in 2018. So I was one of the early users of the Seeing AI app, and I gave the team a lot of feedback on how the app could transform my experience. So here we have the Seeing AI app on my phone, and I have a letter in my hand, and I'm just going to point the Seeing AI app to the letter, and let's see what it says.
Enclosed is a copy of the minutes from the recent annual general meeting.
How would I tell whether I'm holding the letter the right way up or not? But it doesn't matter, because I can turn this letter around and the app will still recognize the text in it.
Enclosed is a copy of the minutes from the recent annual general meeting.
I can also point the Seeing AI app at food products in our fridge and across the kitchen, and it'll tell me exactly what's written on it.
We can all appreciate the role that technology can play to help level that playing field. I think it's enhanced and, in fact, enriched by seeing it through someone with lived experience and having Kenny step through with us all how our platform could be leveraged and some of the new features that were coming out, I know was eye-opening for many members of our team as they think about other applications for that technology.
There were going to be 5,000 people in that summit, so there was a lot of trepidation on my part on whether I wanted to do this or not. But yeah, I made the decision that I do what is necessary to change the perception about someone with a different cognitive need being effective in a high-performance environment.
Stage lights shine on Kenny.
The stage was absolutely bright. In front of the stage, there was this sea of black, essentially. It was very nerve-wracking, extremely nerve-wracking.
So, good morning all. My name is Kenny Singh. I'm a cloud solution architect in the One Commercial Partner organization in Microsoft Australia.
It was a coming out moment for me because there's 5,000 people sitting there, and I had to be completely transparent and vulnerable to them on what my eye condition was and how that specific app was making a profound impact in my life personally.
We're only getting started. So imagine a world where you actually have Seeing AI or artificial intelligence get to the point where it can actually describe the world to the nth degree to someone who actually has a vision impairment. And finally, what does it actually really mean? To me personally, what it actually means is independence. It means empowerment. As Stephen mentioned earlier, it means a level playing field. And above all, it actually means human dignity. So thank you so much. Cheers.
It was a very liberating feeling because now the world was seeing me exactly how I was, and there was nothing hidden. And for me personally, I think it was a huge relief. I had come out, so to speak, and was feeling very empowered. I think any reluctance from that point about being totally upfront about my eye condition, that just disappeared completely.
Smiling, Kenny types on his laptop.
There was an intention in the individuals around me to create a more diverse and inclusive workplace, but it was just not front of mind for organizations as it is today. The real revolution happens when we had a CEO transition, and Satya Nadella, who's our new CEO, in collaboration with our Chief Accessibility Officer, Jenny LeFleury, put diversity and inclusion front of mind for the organization. Since Satya took over, Microsoft in the last 5 years has almost tripled their share price. The fact that when you have diversity and inclusion in an organization, you get much more diverse perspectives to guide your business strategy. You can see very tangible impacts to the bottom line of the organization.
Kenny types rapidly and navigates web pages.
Today, if I need someone to visually scan my documents for any inconsistency, I don't need to spend countless hours doing that with a magnifier. I can basically just reach out to a specific email address to have a look at the formatting of the documents and the visual elements of the document. And that's a testament to the transformation of the culture in the organization. The stress levels just directly began to fall, and that had a very significant impact on my health and well-being. I became very interested in getting my health right. Since then, fitness and health has been a passion of mine.
Kenny lifts weights.
So I joined Microsoft as a consultant. Then I got promoted to a senior consultant. And very recently, I became the product manager for cybersecurity and compliance here in Microsoft Australia.
The work that he's leading impacts hundreds of thousands of people, maybe more than that, around the world now. Because of our reach into so many countries, the work that he leads will be shared with our teams in the US and, of course, in Europe, and will impact the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. And so I think he's now starting to appreciate that he has this wonderful opportunity to continue to be ambitious about how he can use that passion and how he can have impact. And it's been wonderful to see, because it's people like Kenny that are the heart and soul of Microsoft.
I feel that it would have actually helped me a lot in my younger years if I had some kind of a role model who had pursued this career and had been successful in this career and had some tips and insights that they could share from their own experience. So the story that I was actually telling myself was that because I had an eye condition, that somehow made me lesser of a person, and I had to compensate for it. That was the story I was actually telling myself. The story that I had to recalibrate, or that is my story today, is that when I actually bring my full self with all the experiences that I've gained through my life, and bringing my full self to work has meant that my initial perception of feeling lesser of a person because I had this disability to almost feeling empowered, disability becoming my superpower.
Sitting in his sunny yard, Kenny beams. Cut to black. Audio description by The Substation. Credits: Attitude Foundation presents a Taste Creative production. Producer Leah James. Executive producer Henry Smith. Series director Genevieve Clay Smith. Episode director Joanna Garvin. Writer Genevieve Clay Smith. Editor Josh Searle. Created by Taste Creative for Attitude Foundation. Executive producer Graham Innes. Director of photography Mark Kobakian. Filmed on location in Victoria and New South Wales on the traditional lands of the Kulin Nation and the Wurundjeri and Wallumattagal people. Funded by the National Disability Insurance Agency. Logos for Inclusively Made, Taste Creative and Attitude Foundation.